Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You get more information at our website, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on outstanding programs and stuff that's happening in the Asheville area, and as well as in West North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Jan Lowe, Director of Leadership Asheville at UNCA. And Jan, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
That is Jan Lowe. And we'll be talking about Leadership Asheville, which just happens to be one of my favorite organizations in the Asheville area, in that I'm a proud graduate. And thank you, Jan. You looked it up. When was I a graduate?
The 28th class, and we're about to start our 42nd. So a little while ago.
Okay, yeah, and just have to give you and the organization a compliment that was one of the first things I got involved in when I moved to Asheville. And what a great way to find out about Asheville. So thank you, Leadership Asheville. And
Sure.
What's incredible, Jan, I'm still in touch with a whole bunch of the people I graduated from,
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Right.
Great connections. And, you're not the only person who has come to Asheville and decided to jump right into Leadership Asheville. We have folks who do that all the time. We even have people who went through a leadership program that was similar to ours in another city, and they've moved to someplace else and they go through it there, and then they move to Asheville and they do it here. So it's just a great way to get involved.
And it's funny, I did that too. I think I was in Leadership New Jersey a long time ago too. But what a great way, like you said, to get involved. And I just got off the boat and wham, I was in Leadership Asheville.
Yeah.
Jan Lowe has been working with Leadership Asheville program at UNCA since 2014. In her capacity as director, she works closely with community leaders and volunteers to plan and execute LA class days, events, and community outreach programs. During her career in telecommunications operations management, Jan realized that her real passion was helping others to succeed. Her work allows her to feed that passion by providing opportunities for community members to develop themselves as leaders and use their talents to give back to the local communities. And Jan, the question I always ask first when I meet somebody for the first time is, as a child, you grew up where?
I grew up in south of Atlanta in Morrow, Georgia.
Okay.
So,
and as a young woman growing up in Morrow, Georgia, did you always know you wanted to head a leadership organization in Asheville, North Carolina?
I don't think I did. I don't think I did. I think what my interests have changed over the years.
So as a child, what do you want to be?
Well, I was always interested in history. And so I majored in history in college. I taught Head Start for 3 years, and I really enjoyed that. Honestly, it was just something I couldn't make a living at. And then I fell into general business, which I did for the next 25 years or so. And, you get a lot of leadership opportunities as you're going through the ranks. And I've had a couple of businesses in the past of my own. And so I really I think learned by osmosis that to be a leader, what you need to do is listen to people, collaborate with people, and get them to be on your side in order to achieve a goal. And for me, achieving that goal means helping others to achieve whatever goal they want to accomplish. And so I just kind of fell into it as an accident.
Something you mentioned struck a nerve, and you were saying you were with Head Start. And one of the things, and I mentioned on other shows as well, is what a shame that people in Head Start don't get paid more money.
Yes, it is.
You're saying it, Jan. I always thought that the two most important jobs, perhaps, or some of the most important jobs, are people who work with young kids, and then people who work with older folks. And those are the people who get paid so poorly that, like you said, you can't really make a living out of it for the most part.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
What a shame. So you brought that background. How did you get involved in both Asheville and Leadership Asheville? When did you move to Asheville?
I moved to Asheville in 2012.
Okay.
I have a brother and sister-in-law who are here, so I'd been coming many years to visit, and it just seemed like the right time in my career to make the move. I'd always wanted to move here, or had in the last 20 years. And so I came here and I got a position with the university, and then with Leadership Asheville, and have been very happy and doing that job since basically 2014, 2013, 2014.
I guess you moved here shortly after we did. We moved in 2009, I think it was. And so somehow I found Leadership Asheville. I'm not quite sure how, but for the benefit of the folks who don't know what Leadership Asheville is, if I can ask you in the next 2 hours or so to, no, just, if you would, the Reader's Digest version, what is Leadership Asheville?
It is a community program that meets once a year from September to May. It's part of the university. There are these leadership development kind of community leadership programs all around the country. I just went to a conference last week of the Association of Leadership Programs, and there were 250 people there from organizations just like Leadership Asheville. You mentioned that you went through Leadership New Jersey. So it's similar. And our goal is to really educate people about what's going on in the community, to introduce them to community leaders in all kinds of different ways, business leaders, nonprofit leaders, government leaders, folks in education, and to show them what's happening in the community. And we meet from September to May. We meet once a month for a full day. The classes are all themed, so we learn about things like local government, equity and inclusion, economic development, what's going on in our community there. We learn about the arts and culture, tourism, lots of different areas. And the goal is to get people involved and get them connected and to make a difference in our community. So we develop, engage, and connect. That's
one thing I hope that anybody's listening to it, just get the idea that we'd like them to get involved in Leadership Asheville if they choose. Unfortunately, they can't do it for this year. It'd be for the next class.
That's correct. That's correct. We just had our deadline and we've put the class together. So we've accepted everyone we're going to accept for this year. But starting in April or March or April of next year, we'll begin accepting applications for LA 43, which will start in September of 2024.
How many people are typically in the class? Yeah, this year's 50.
Somewhere between 45 and 50. We've accepted 50 folks in this class, so I think that's about where we'll be.
How many people typically apply?
Typically, we have 15 to 20 folks in addition to the ones who end up getting selected. We'd love to select everyone. It's impossible to have a class of 70 people and build any connections. And so if we are unable to accept everyone, we ask them to please apply again. It's not anything that it doesn't impact them, or it doesn't really reflect upon them that they weren't accepted. It typically is just we don't have room for all the folks who'd like to do it in 1 year.
And I remember way back when I applied for the first time, one of the things I always liked about the concept of Leadership Asheville is you're exposing people to different parts of the Asheville community, but you're also encouraging them to get involved and talk a little bit about that process. But
well, throughout the year, they're going to last year, I think we heard from 127 speakers throughout the year. We went to over 35 different locations on site visits to see what organizations and businesses were doing. So they get a wide variety of exposure to different organizations. And at the end of the day, whether someone decides to run for office, serve on a nonprofit board, be part of a county or city commission or committee, council, something like that, or if they want to just, be a soccer coach, it doesn't make any difference to me as long as they get involved and do something that makes a difference to somebody in the community. It doesn't matter if it's making a difference to one person or two people or 100 people. Just impact someone else. And that's our goal.
Funny you say that because I vaguely recall, I don't know if you still have it, but in the application, one of the things what was my goal to give back to the community or something, rather than just, I don't know if it's still asked. But Jan, I remember the experience that you were saying you're going to turn this around to get me talking about Leadership Asheville. Boy, do I remember the experiences. I remember police, there was a whole thing on criminal justice. I don't know if you have a separate session. And I remember hearing from the police chief at the time, and still remember to this day, he was asked, or he mentioned his goal, and his everyday goal is to get home safely alive. But I remember that. I remember, I don't know if you still do this, but the first time I ever went to a firing range, I shot a pistol. Just all the experiences were so, what was great about them, a lot of times they're actually kind of involved in it. It was almost hands-on as opposed to a straight lecture. And even talk about that, Jan, when you bring in a speaker,
Mhm.
it's also very interactive, right? Or dynamic that people are
That's right.
interacting. Yeah.
That's right. We try to be as interactive as we can be. Occasionally we'll have panel discussions, which can be, some people really love those, others are not so thrilled by them. But if we do that kind of thing, it's intermixed during the day. But I think I mentioned we go out and we do site visits. So we will go to places like the fire department, or we go to city offices and see people in their environment and the work that they're doing. Or we'll go to someplace like, we had a wonderful tour at GE Aviation. So we go and see things in the community intermixed with speakers and panel discussions. We also do a lot of experiential exercises throughout the day. One thing we did this past year, we throw you into a kind of a city council session where you've got to make decisions about budget, and you've got $10 million and you've got 200 organizations that really want some of those dollars. How are you going to make those decisions? So those are definitely part of what we do, because we want you to learn how to really get involved and make decisions and collaboratively work together. Collaboration is a big deal with us.
I also remember as you're talking that was the first time I'd ever been exposed to the food bank, Manor Food Bank.
Right.
And then I don't know if you still do this, but we spent the whole day putting together packages. You know, I still remember this, 15 years later or something.
Yeah. Very hands-on as much as we can make it, and we've certainly done the work at Manna. This past year, we always end the class with a day of service, and we actually went to beloved Asheville and helped build their tiny homes.
How cool was that? Yeah,
that was really cool. Amy Cantrell and everyone who works there, they are amazing folks, and it was just an honor to be part of it.
Beloved Asheville, yeah, I had them as a guest too, and they, like I said, do great work. How many people, in terms of the class, do they typically stay on and volunteer or get involved with the organizations they hear about?
They do. It's amazing how many people get involved on boards and are still on boards. I mean, I have some past graduates from the LA 34, LA 35 class who have been serving on a board for since they graduated, and others. The big thing to me, Blaine, is when people come up to me and say, gee, I didn't even know that organization existed, and now I'm really connected. I'm interested in that. And I'm going to take a step forward and see if I can at least serve on a committee, if not serve on the board.
And you mentioned that too, Jan, a little bit in terms of one of the things that Leadership Asheville encourages people to do. But people want to get involved in the community or serving on a board. What is the process? How do you go about doing that?
I think the first thing is to educate yourself about the organization. Make sure you know as much as you can. And then I recommend folks get in touch with someone on the board and go have lunch. Talk with them about the work that they do. Talk about what needs they might need on the board, and actually volunteer just to serve on a committee. First, start doing some work for that organization and see if you're really as interested in it as you think you might be. And then I think what generally happens is positions open up. And you've shown the members of the board and the staff members that you're interested in their organization, and they'll get in contact with you and say, gee, we'd love to have you serve in this capacity, and off you go. But it's being curious and doing the research and finding out about the organizations.
Are nonprofits in the area looking for volunteers and people to serve on their boards?
They are. And sometimes it's a specific need. They may need someone who has some financial knowledge, or someone who has some legal knowledge. But most of the time, what they really need is somebody who's committed to their mission and really wants to make a difference. And someone who knows how to, or is willing to learn how to work with the staff and really be a sounding board for those folks, because the staff members have a hard time at these nonprofits. Most of them are doing it because they love the work. It's not because they make a lot of money. And it's great to understand how you can support them as a board member, not be in charge of them.
And we certainly say Asheville, what is it? A nonprofit capital of the world, or certainly of North Carolina?
We certainly are. We certainly are. There is, if you want to get involved with a nonprofit, you're going to have an opportunity to do so. There are plenty here.
And talk also about one of the things I think Leadership Asheville does so well is that in each class, you try to bring in a mix of people. Many of them are with profit firms in the area, but you have many nonprofit folks come to join, right?
That's correct. I would say that typically it's somewhere in 55 to 58% come from for-profit organizations, and the rest come from either government and education or nonprofits. And we have we certainly have a tuition. We have a lot of costs associated with the program, everything from meals and transportation and the things that you probably don't think about to put a program on for a year like this. But we are very open to looking at folks who have financial needs. If you need some help with the tuition, we're open to doing that. We have wonderful sponsors who help us, so we're able to sometimes give an entire spot to a person who otherwise couldn't afford it. Maybe they work for a small nonprofit, or they're an entrepreneur and they're just their own business. So we want lots of people from different backgrounds and to take part in the program, and only strengthens it and our community to have lots of different people involved.
As part of the program each year, I think it started maybe the year or two after I left, but there used to be a retreat or a beginning weekend or something to acclimate people.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So we start off with an orientation class day, and then a couple of weeks later, we will have it's a 2-night, 2.5-day kind of retreat that starts on a Thursday evening and ends on Saturday. And it's really meant to be kind of a team building situation where they get to know each other. The class days are so chock full of speakers and site visits and things that they don't really get a whole lot of time sometimes to just sit and talk. And they can do that at the retreat. But we do things like we'll have a poverty simulation that someone like just economics will come in and facilitate for us. And we do experiential learning exercises throughout the day. And we have lots of different opportunities for them to connect as a group and as individuals during that retreat. And it just starts the day off, the year off perfectly.
Who develops the programs?
So I have a program development team that's kind of like my advisory board, and they help me set the criteria for the year. What is it that we want to change? How do we want to enhance the program for these folks? And then one of the things that the graduates from the class that just finished have to do is they have to serve on a planning team. So the people who just graduated in May, that was LA class 42, they get assigned to a class day. So for instance, Blaine, we're going to start our first regular class day is History Day. So I have 5 people from the previous class who are on a small committee with me, and we meet and we talk about what we did last year. We look at past agendas. We think about what we'd like the class to be exposed to this year, and we plan the day. So it actually is Leadership Asheville graduates who help put the program days together.
That's one of the cool things I'm hearing you say, is that each year then the program evolves, I guess, or changes a little bit each year.
It does. There's certain things that we continue to do. Did your class do a project? Did you have
I loved it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody about it just the other day. I remember it very well, the project. Just highlight it. I thought it was a great project. We looked at the handicapped accessibility of people in Asheville, and the laws were changing around that time, but still supposedly, Asheville is not as handicapped accessible even today as you'd like it to be, So great project. I thought we looked at the parking spaces, where they indicated, and it was amazing, Jan. We found a lot of people weren't in compliance, and even though they're supposed to. But yeah, so it's funny. Some people may not like it. I loved our project. Talk about some of the other projects that we've done.
Sure. The project component, I think, is a very important piece of Leadership Asheville. It's a learning lab, and if you're going to serve on a nonprofit board or on a committee, you don't know who the other members are going to be, and you need to learn how to play well together, right? How to collaborate and work on a single goal that you all have agreed to do. So the projects allow people to do that. And typically what we do is we recruit some nonprofits, 3 or 4 nonprofits each year who have a specific need, and we'll develop teams around that need, and they will work with those nonprofits throughout the year. And we also have a component similar to yours, I think, where we allow class members to maybe put together their own issue team, what is it that you would like to research and that you'd like to learn about that will make a difference in the community? So it's kind of a combination now between 2 or 3 nonprofits and then issue teams. And honestly, that's because the people who are in the class are different. Some people want to have, a written out objective from a nonprofit that says, this is what I need you to do. Others want to do a little more brainstorming and say, I'm concerned about pickleball. I don't know,
Right.
whatever it is. I'd like to grow pickleball, or I'd like to get rid of pickleball, whatever it happens to be. And so we want to give them the opportunity to kind of work either way.
It's funny, as you mentioned, you bring back memories here. I still remember our project, and I'm still friendly with one of the people on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, we had, I guess, as many other teams do, we had some problems, and one person, Jan, remember, like it was yesterday, I won't mention the person's name, but she wanted to take over the whole thing. And then about 3/4 of the way through, she had done nothing, the whole thing fell apart. And we had to bring it together in the last couple of weeks, and we were able to, but that was a learning experience.
That's right.
You think everybody should be on the same wavelength, but they weren't.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And this, and I know this too. Sometimes you learn a lot more from failure and difficulty than you do from success. So even if it doesn't turn out to be exactly the way they wanted it to be, I think it's still a positive experience. And people afterwards, even the ones who had a hard time, a year or so later, they go, you know what, that was really a good experience.
Like I said, I still remember it, but I love the fact you give people the option now. We didn't have the option, but that's a great idea. Jen, also another thing we mentioned just briefly before, but you also do other projects throughout the year. And a big one every summer, right, is the Business Buzz Breakfast.
That's right. It's the Summer Buzz Breakfast.
What are they?
So this summer, what we focused on was working together to create a safe and vibrant downtown. And typically with this series, we do an event in June, one in July, and one in August. So of course we've done the June and July events. In June, we had an expert on urban development, Joe Minicozy, come and speak about how cities and municipalities raise money to actually do the projects that they want to do to make a difference. And so Joe talked about that. We had a couple of community members who were also very involved in trying to create a business improvement district a few years ago for downtown. And they added a great quality to that particular discussion. Then in July, we had Captain Mike Lamb from the police department. We had Dana Frankel from the city of Asheville. She's the downtown planning manager for the city of Asheville, come and talk about the 60-day plan. We also had 2 community members, Kevin Frazier, who owns a couple of businesses in town, and David McCartney, who is the manager of the Hotel Heiress, come and talk about what safety means to them in their different ways. And we're going to culminate on August the 15th, Tuesday, August the 15th at 8 o'clock. The events are at the Crown Plaza in the Expo Center. And this August, we're going to hear from, we've got Deborah Campbell, who's the city manager. We have Chief David Zach of the Asheville Police Department. Sheriff Quentin Miller is going to join us. Honor Moore, who is with the Asheville Coalition on Public Safety. And we have Michael Woods, who is the executive director of the Western Carolina Rescue Mission. They're going to bring their ideas about what safety is. The chief and Ms. Campbell are going to talk about how they're working together, and along with the sheriff, to bring more safety to downtown, and talk about the 60-day plan and how that's gone and what's going to happen in the future. I believe that Michael Woods can certainly talk a little bit about our unhoused population and the work that's being done to help them. And of course, Honor can speak about communities, how the community has kind of coalesced around helping the Asheville Police Department. So it's going to be a great event. They'll each talk for a few minutes, but we're going to have plenty of time for questions from the audience, and I encourage folks to come.
Now, when are these programs typically offered? What time framework?
So it'll be, August the 15th. The program starts at 8:30. So you should try to be there at 8 so you can have a little breakfast and some coffee. And they're over by 10. So, you're done by 10 o'clock. You can keep going with the rest of your day. It's $25 to attend. You can get a ticket on our website, which is leadershipasheville.unca.edu. And you can certainly email me Let me give you my email address.
If you would.
It's jlowe, JLOWE at UNCA.edu.
Now, are
And
these programs offered to, can anybody attend, or do you have to be affiliated?
Anybody can attend. There is a $25 charge. We are serving breakfast, but I do want to say that if you can't afford to come, if you work for a small nonprofit, just can't afford that, just send me an email and let me know. One of the things that a lot of our Leadership Asheville graduates who attend do is they buy a ticket from themselves, and then they have the opportunity to buy an additional ticket to donate a seat. So I have seats available for folks who can't afford it. So just let me know.
Typically, how many people attend these?
Somewhere around 150 to 200.
So it's quite a crowd.
Right.
And it seems like it's a great way. And I know my producer went to the last meeting. She just loved it. It's a great way to, I guess, meet other people and get familiar with what's happening in Asheville.
Right. You can, in addition to the program, it's a great opportunity to network with other business leaders and nonprofit folks, and just meet people who are interested in what's going on in the community.
Now, you do one thing I wasn't familiar with too. You were mentioning earlier about the fact that you have these board programs, or you have what do you call it again, the program?
Yeah. So one of the things that Leadership Asheville started 5 or 6 years ago was the Leadership Asheville Executive Director Roundtable. And basically we meet once a month for lunch and visit with each other for an hour and a half to 2 hours. It is right now, I think there are 33 members of the Executive Director Roundtable, and typically we have 20 to 22 who come to each meeting. These are really busy folks, and they can't come to every one. But it's a safe space for them to share experiences, to learn from each other. They even, their emails going back and forth all the time. Hey, I'd like to change my customer relationship management software. Anybody have any suggestions? Or I'm looking to change my policy on vacation. What do you folks do? So they are sharing information with each other, and we'll occasionally have speakers who will come in and talk to them. So that's a terrific thing. And I think it's something that we're just going to continue doing. It's not expensive to be a part of it. We don't want it to be, don't want any barriers to smaller organizations. We'll have one group that has 100 employees, a very large nonprofit for Asheville, and we'll have one that has 2. So it's an interesting group, and they're all wonderful people.
Groups slide into a central theme, or they have different themes at each meeting? How does that work?
And it's kind of up to them. So typically what we do is we have lunch for the first 30 minutes and people just visit. And if we don't have a speaker, I'll just say, who has something they'd like to share, they'd like to talk about. And everyone in the group knows that they're going to have the opportunity to do that. So if they've got something that's going on and they want to hear the feedback from other people, they'll do it. And they also can, we talk in the first meeting, we say, what kind of program would you like to have this year? Do you want to have a speaker come in and talk about options for health insurance? Or do you want to have a speaker come in and talk about whatever it might be? And then I will just go find experts in the community who can meet those needs and schedule them to take part throughout the year. So it's really driven by the members.
Same question as before. Do you have to have a tie-in to Leadership Asheville to participate in this?
You do not. You do not. I'd say about maybe a quarter of the members have been through the Leadership Asheville program before, but you certainly don't. That's not a requirement.
Okay, again, so the same thing too. If they want to become involved, best bet, I guess, maybe send you an email.
Send me an email. Yeah, jlowe@unca.edu.
Okay. And so in terms of Leadership Asheville, if I can just have you kind of repeat the key facts, or I guess one, the website again is what?
leadershipasheville.unca.edu.
Okay. And again, your email address?
jlowe@unca.edu.
Okay. The only thing I can encourage folks to do, Jan, is if they haven't gone through the program yet, to put on their calendars for next year, but you're in for quite a treat if you go through it. How many graduates, ballpark, you've gone through?
1,700, a little over 1,700.
Yeah. And it's amazing how many people still maintain the contact with Leadership Asheville or still involved in. Anyway, Jan, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of Blaine's World podcast. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, And Jen, I'm going to try to stop the recording. Just stay with me for a second afterwards so we can wrap up.
Sure.
So anyway, thank you very much. That was great. And I'll hopefully look forward to meeting you in person at some point in time.
Thank you, Blaine.